Welcome to our first unit, choosing an email address. Choosing an email address. Now, you might be asking yourself, does it mean to choose an email address? Does it matter for you to choose an email address? Does an email address really matter? And the answer to that question from me, your instructor, is yes, it matters. That username that you choose matters, and not only matter, but it matters a lot. Why do I say that it matters? Let's first of all look at what we shall learn in the course. Then by the end of it, you'll know why we say that an email address really matters. What we are going to learn in this unit 1, is the structure of an email address, how an email address is structured, sorry. And we are also going to look into how to choose a username. If you don't know what we mean by username, don't you worry. This is why you are learning this course with me. And we are also going to look at different domain extensions that we have. If you don't know again what a domain extension is, don't you worry. I've got your back covered. So let's dive into it, and please be with me up to the very end. Choosing an email address continued, and we start with the first unit of the structure of an email address. I am sure you have ever seen an email address. Even as we talk, you could be having one, but you don't know the different parts of that email address. You maybe just have one, for example at domain.com, and you don't know what are the different parts. So allow me to start by breaking down the different parts of an email address for you, and from that you'll be able to learn something. I hope so. Now, I have a good example here. This is just an example for you. Definitely no one has such an email address, but this is a good example that covers the basic structure of an email address. Look at this. It starts with example@domain.com, and this is what majority of us have. Okay, example@domain.com is the basic structure of an email address. So what does it entail? The first part here, it simply represents the username. What do we mean by username? Username simply refers to a name that you choose that represents you. Okay, username is basically what that word or those letters or those words or combination of words and numbers that represent you. Then on top of that, we have the symbol at. Okay, that's it. We call it a separator. We shall be learning more about that separator. Then after that, we have the domain name. Okay, so you remember in the previous slides I just mentioned a domain, and maybe you are asking yourself, what do we mean by a domain? Now here it is, a domain name. So what do we mean by a domain name? We are going to look into that more, what we mean by a domain name, but for now just understand that we do have a domain. Then the last part, we have what we call an extension. An extension, again, we are going to look more into extensions and what they mean and their purpose in an email address. So basically, an email address has this structure. It has a username followed by a separator, followed by a domain name, followed by an extension. Okay, so if you find that an email address that misses either of these four parts, then that email address is not complete. It will be missing. Maybe, I don't know, but if you have ever tried to key in your address in some of these portals, online portals, or maybe doing some registration in some online forms, and you are requested to input your email address, and you miss either of these four parts, and you find that the system gives you an error telling you that this is not a genuine, or it is not a valid email address. Why? Because all email address have got this basic structure. They start with a username, a separator, a domain name, an extension. So what does it mean for each of these four parts? So let's dive into it and see what each part represents. Let's start with the first one, the username. So a username is chosen by the user at the time of registering an email account. When you are registering your email account, you choose a username. Username is basically a combination of words or a combination of letters, combination of words and numbers that you use to represent you, the user. Okay, you who is using that email, that using that computer, we refer to you as the user. So those combination of words, letters, or words and numbers to represent you is what we refer to as a username. And when you are choosing your username, you are advised, it is recommended that you avoid choosing a username that depicts something that is vague, that shows that is somehow offensive, something that shows it is not polite. I hope you understand what I mean. So when you are choosing your username, it's very, very important that you choose a username that it appears decent. Okay, so you avoid choosing a username that may appear offensive or may appear not decent. All right, so what do we mean by a username that's not decent? What do we mean by a username that is offensive? For example, look at this example that I have for you here. Choosing a username that looks like this: haters. So assume that this is your email address, haters@example.com. If you have this username, haters@example.com, it is shows, or it gives an idea of somebody who is somehow not likable, somebody who is not good, it's not social with people, or something of the sort. Okay, so avoid choosing a username that is not decent, a username that is offensive. Or for example, if you have this other one here, coolgirl@example.com. I know you might be asking yourself, what's so big with cool girl as a username? And myself, I am a cool girl, if you are girl. Okay, behind the voices of a gentleman, the Arrosto is a gentleman. So if you have that username cool girl, it is not decent. All right, everyone can be termed to be cool, and everyone holds some degree of calmness. All right, and again, cool girl, it's not a name of an individual, it's not a name for a person. So again, it shows something that's not okay. All right, I hope you understand that. Okay, or maybe you have an example like this one. Sorry to mention this, but allow me to just give it because I have seen it somewhere. Fuckboy@example.com. Well, I know in some countries the word FUCK is acceptable, but in other countries the FUCK is not acceptable. And if you go back into your dictionaries, it's not a very good name. It carries some other meaning. I know it has about 2-3 meanings, but one of the meanings is not a very good one. So it is not, you'll be associated, or whoever gets to see your email address might associate you with some dirty things. And so it's good that as you choose your username, try to choose a username that is not offensive, a username that is not decent. All right, and maybe you are asking yourself, okay, all right, you have told us that, so what do you mean by username that's not offensive? What do you mean by username that's not decent? So for me here, I have a few examples for you. Assuming your name is Rostoben, your instructor here. If I was to look for an email address, or if I was to choose my email address, I would take my first name and the second name, and combination of the two would use it to make my username. All right, so look at this. If I take my first name, arrosto@example.com, all right, that's a good username because it carries my first name, and then the other part is not you to choose. Okay, it's you to choose, I know that, but it has nothing to do so much with me. All right, or maybe I can go with the second one, arrosto.ben. Okay, remember we said that a username is a combination of a combination of text, combination of words, a combination of characters, or text and characters, or combination of words, text and numbers, just to represent you. So this one is a legal one, is an acceptable one. Arrosto.ben, my two names separated with a full stop or a dot at the center. So arrosto.ben@example.com, or maybe this one here, Ben_Arrosto. All right, though the underscore is not very clearly here, but it's there. Ben underscore Arosto at example.com. That's also something acceptable. Or maybe the other one here, Arostob at example.com. Okay, Arostob at example.com. So these are just examples of some not offensive, not decent email address username that I can use. For the gender purposes, I have another name here, Mary Beatrice. Mary Beatrice could be a lady working in some company somewhere, or could be even a student somewhere. Okay, and Mary Beatrice is choosing a username, and maybe she can choose Mary Beatrice at example.com. So the username Mary Beatrice, taking her two names. Okay, or Beatrice Mary at example.com, or beatrice.mary12 at example.com. All right, beatrice.mary12 at example.com. So those are just basic username that are acceptable, and they are not offensive. So it is recommended, and I would recommend this to you, that anytime you are picking you are choosing a username, pick it from your two names. Okay, use your two names, or maybe if you cannot, your two names have been picked by somebody else, okay, maybe you can incorporate numbers, and that one is acceptable. However, don't put so many numbers. Okay, don't put so many numbers, or don't choose your username to be full of numbers alone. That one again will show something different. We shall be discussing about spams in a later unit. So my good friend, my good student, if you are choosing an email address for yourself, you are choosing a username, please make use of your first name and your second name. Okay, if you have that has been taken, then incorporate numbers, but again, don't put so many of numbers. All right, I hope that one is okay. So let's look into the second part. Now, the second part is the art, the symbol. The symbol art is basically a separator. It basically separates the username from the domain name. Okay, that's the whole purpose of that symbol art. Separates the username from the domain name, and that one is standard all across. Okay, it is internationally accepted, and it is there for every other email address. Okay, so that one is basically a separator. Okay, just as the word suggests, it separates your username and your other parts, or other the domain name and the extension. All right, so let's look into the domain name. Domain name refers to the host of your email account. By the end of this unit, you are going to register an account, or maybe you already have one. Okay, there is that company that hosts, or that you have used their resources to have an email account. That's the company that is represented by the domain name. Okay, so the domain name basically refers to the host of your email account, and in the world today, they are commonly used email providers. Okay, we have commonly used email providers. Allow me to just mention but a few. We have Outlook that is provided by Microsoft. Okay, that is one of the commonly used email provider. We have Yahoo Mails. Yahoo Mails again also provided by Yahoo.com, or Yahoo company is the one that provides that platform, or that email platform, or you can open an email with Yahoo Mails. We also have what we call Zoho Mail. Zoho Mail is also another company that provides a platform for you to open an account, okay, and use an email account. Then on top of that, we have Gmail. Gmail again, this is also a common used one, and actually it's one of the which we shall be using to learn. All right, but then we also have another one called Proton Mail. Proton Mail is also another common one. So these are just examples of basic or most commonly used email providers: the Outlook, Yahoo Mail, Zoho Mail, Gmail, and Proton Mail. Definitely we have others, other email providers, but I just chose these ones because they are commonly used, and they are widely used. Okay, or other than being commonly used, they are also widely used. So domain name refers to the host of your email. So if you open an account with Yahoo, okay, so your domain will be Yahoo. So you'll have something like example@yahoo.com. If you open an account with Gmail, to be example@gmail.com, and so on and so forth. So okay, I hope that you understand that. All right. So if that is it, then the last part of the email address is the extension .com. Now, .com is just one of the many extensions that can be used, and these extensions, they are used to identify your host organization. Okay, the type of the organization that is hosting your email account. All right, what type it is. And also we have other extensions that are used to represent country, the country into which that organization belongs. Okay, so the .com is just an example of the many extensions that we use or that are used to identify the host type or the type of organization your host is, and also the country that your host belongs to. Okay, so with me here, I have prepared a table to show examples of institution extensions. For example, if you have an extension .edu, that is an extension to show that it's an education organization or institution. .gov, it's a government institution. .org, it's a non-profit organization, okay, NGO. .co, it's a commercial institution. .net, it's a networking services institution. .ac, it's an academic service institution. All right, maybe you might be asking yourself, what's the difference between .ac and .edu? A question that I normally get from students. What's the difference between .edu and .ac? Okay, edu, it's an education institution. All right, it could be a university, it could be not only a university, it could be any other institution that offers any school, let me say so. All right, .ac could be a company that deals with academic services. All right, that deals with academics. All right, so if maybe you are having an organization that deals with offering career guidance to students, okay, that institution can be registered with .ac because it's an academic related institution or academic related organization. So these are some of the examples that we have of extensions that can be there in your email. For example, if you belong to an institution like the Ariosto Institute, okay, the Ariosto Institute, and maybe the Ariosto Institute has a domain. It's a domain registered as the ariostoinstitute.com, not .com, but .edu. Okay, and you have an email. You are a staff in that institution, the Ariosto Institute. You are a staff there, and they have given you an email address to use. So could be your email is staff@theariostoinstitute.edu. All right, so the Ariosto Institute is your domain. .edu is the extension, as identifying that institution as an education institution. All right, then we also have extensions for different countries. So if you belong to Kenya maybe, and there you have .ke representing that country is Kenya. You have .ug representing that is Uganda, and .uk, an extension for United Kingdoms, .us representing United States, and .tz representing Tanzania, .ae representing United Arab Emirates. So those are again extensions for countries. So you could be having an institution, again I give that example of the Ariosto Institute, and maybe the ariostoinstitute.co.ke. all right, understand that, the ariostoinstitute.co.ke. so the domain is the Ariosto Institute, the extensions are .co, then .ke. So .co showing that it's a commercial organization or commercial institution. .ke meaning that it belongs or it is registered in Kenya or it is in Kenya. All right, so it can have the ariostoinstitute.co.ke. you understand? So you can have your email as example@theariostoinstitute.co.ke. all right, that though it's a lengthy one, but it's still acceptable. Okay, so .co.ke or .co.uk or whichever other extension that you could be having. Okay, so that's it, and I hope that you have gotten it so far. I hope it's so good. All right, and my good friend, that's it for this unit, the end of this unit. I do hope that you have learned something to do with extensions, domains, usernames, and the general structure of the email address. And that is the end of the first unit. Thank you so much that you've come to this end, and I tell you what, congratulations, my good learner, that you've come to the end of the first unit, and I hope that you are eager to learn more into the second unit. In the second unit, we shall be doing a bit of demonstration how to register an email address, and I hope that you are going to join me up to the very end. So I look forward to seeing you in the second unit. Until then, have yourself a good time. Thank you.